Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and today let's make a lightweight no-sew wall hanging. We're going to need some foam board and some fabric, and we can use whatever fabric we want, or we can even cut up some panels. We need very few supplies for this project. We will need some ribbon, and that's going to be to hang up the wall hangings. I'm going to start with 4 yards, but the amount that you're going to need will depend on the size of those wall hangings. The ribbon is going to be looped through something circular shape so it can hang on the wall, and I'm using an old belt buckle. Some very simple child's paper glue. We're going to need some batting and some foam board, and to cut that foam board, some type of an X-Acto knife. And of course we need fabric. I was able to find a panel with 3 big squares in it. The design is from Susy Bee's, but you can use any fabric that you want to fit your decor. The fabric is going to dictate the size of the foam board and your size of batting. We will need enough fabric to go from the front and fold it over to the back with that batting in between. So that's going to determine the size of the square. My piece is about 13.5 by 14.5, but I do want this square. So I've decided that my little wall plaques are going to be a 12-inch square. This is going to give me lots of room to fold that fabric over and still maintain what I want in the picture. The outside of the fabric does not have to be square and even. What needs to be square is the foam board. So choose the size and then put your ruler over top, and using an X-Acto knife, you can cut out that foam board. It's very easy to cut out. We can prepare our foam board first and then prepare our squares second. We will need a piece of batting the same size as this foam board. Foam board has a paper surface on it, so that paper will work good with a paper glue. And we're only needing a very thin surface of glue. That glue is just to hold the batting on while we do the front. There's so little glue, it's not coming through. I don't feel it at all. And by having such a small amount of glue, it's going to dry really quick. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to cut out my fabric. And I'm not worried about squaring off that outside. It's going to be on the back. You'll never see it. What is important is that this fabric has no wrinkles. Before we glue the fabric onto the foam board, we need to put some measurements along the back. When I hang my boards up, I'm going to be having 2 rows of ribbon. So I want to make sure that I have lines that the ribbon can follow along. And I want each board to be exactly the same so that they hang up straight. So I've decided I'm going to use a 2.5-inch mark. And I'm going to run a 2.5-inch mark along each side. This way, I'm going to be able to use that mark, and my ribbon will be able to sit right along those edges. And that way it stays straight. It's easier to do the lines now than after. Now we're going to be able to glue this fabric onto the foam board. The panel or the fabric needs to be face down, and the batting is going to go on the back of that panel or the back of the fabric. And we're going to be able to center that. Before I do anything further, I'm going to hold the edges and turn it over to make sure that it's in the position that I want it in. From here, we're just going to glue this fabric onto the back of the board. I want to keep in mind that those lines are going to go from top to bottom. So double check and make sure the lines are going in the right direction. The first fold will be these corners coming to the inside. I'm going to put the glue on the fabric, and that way when that fabric is folded up, I won't end up with any glue on the foam board. And we really do not need that much. It's just a matter of running a little bit of glue along the edge. And pick up this edge and fold it over. That fabric and the paper back will stick together. I'll be able to stick that fabric together. What I'm trying to do is accomplish a nice tight corner. You can also take a pin and put a pin right along that edge. I make sure those pins are as tight as I can along those corners, going through both layers. And as that glue dries, it's going to give a nice sharp point. As we're gluing this fabric onto the back, we need to pull the fabric tight, but not too tight that we're warping the foam board. And if you're in a hurry for this glue to dry, a hairdryer will work great. Once those edges are dried, we can take out those pins. I'm going to start by gluing the top and the bottom first. By putting the glue on the fabric, we don't have too much sitting on the board. And once again, we don't need a lot. Because those corners are dried and tight, when we pull this over, it's going to give us a nice flat corner. And we can just pull this fabric until that corner is tight. We don't want it pulled too hard, just enough that it's smooth. On the corners, I like to just put a couple of pins, and we can pin right through that foam board. And that's just going to help it dry while I work on the next corner. Same idea, just a little bit of glue and then fold that over and smooth it to the back. I'm going to make that as flat as I can. With the two sides done, I'm going to be able to do the two second sides. Same way, a little glue on the fabric, fold it over, pin it, and let it dry. Once the panels or the fabric has been attached to this foam board, we're going to be able to put our ribbon along the back. I've made sure that all of my pictures are in the order that they're going to be at, and then I'm going to be able to glue my ribbon on. I'm going to start and glue the ribbon on to the back of the middle one. I make sure I have lots of ribbon hanging out to the bottom and also lots at the top. I'm going to be able to trim these off after. Put a little bit of glue so that we can stick that ribbon on following that drawn line that we did. I'm going to make sure that that ribbon sits right along that line, smoothing it out and putting a couple of pins just to anchor that while I'm working on the other side and for it to dry. I want it as straight as possible to keep these straight as they're hanging, and glue the second side in the same manner. While my center is drying, I can work on either side, but I need to establish an equal amount of the space. I have found a piece of board that I'm going to be able to put in between. That is the space that I'm going to use. I'm going to push those two pieces together, lining up the sides, and that way I know that the distance is very accurate. And I can glue this ribbon onto the bottom and then remove this board. Once these are all attached together, I let them dry and then I remove the pins. We could leave the back just the way it is, but I do like to have it finished so it looks nice from both sides. I'm going to use another piece of fabric, and in this case I've had the coordinating fabric with these cute little bees on it, and I've cut it a 1/2 inch smaller. Having it just a little bit smaller means I'm not going to see it from the front side, but it will look nice from the back. And I'll lightly glue those onto the back. I used a pair of pinking shears to cut that back fabric. It just gives it a nice little detail, but a straight cut will be fine. I have 2 long pieces of ribbon that are coming from the top and the same for the bottom. I'm going to have those 2 pieces cross over. I've used a nice big old belt buckle, so I'm going to be able to take that ribbon and just loop it through the center. From here I'm going to be able to adjust it to the size that I want and the size that looks right. You can also adjust one side a little bit longer or shorter than the other to keep this hanging up straight. Before I permanently attach these, I'm going to test it to make sure it's hanging up straight. Once I've established the proper position, I'm going to do a little bit of a hand stitch right along the underneath. I have 3 little stitches to hold all those layers together. When the belt buckle goes down, you won't notice them. Now you can trim the ends. And the wall hanging is now done. We could do 1 panel, 2 panels, large panels, small panels. It is unlimited on what we can do. That lightweight foam board makes it very simple and lightweight, so we can do many different things with it. I think the hardest thing will be choosing the fabric. Are we going to use beautiful fruit fabric and bring it into the kitchen? sewing room, bedroom, living room, dining room, or maybe a nursery. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back and let's see what we're sewing or maybe not sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.